Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Critical Podcast. My name is Jimmy Good, and I am your host. And joining me, as always, is my go-to podcast compadre, Mr. Joe Lever. Joe, how's it going, buddy?
Muhammad Ali in the podcast coming at you hot. Yeah. A little adaptation on last week's intro. You know, the whole boxing gig. You know, I'm gonna attack this one. I'm gonna get in there. I'm gonna give you a whole rundown, every topic, all day, every day.
Correct. Yes, I like the
It's gonna be litty.
I love the follow through there with the punching and stuff. It's kind of like your new thing. But yes, as Joe was saying, we're gonna attack this baby, high energy the whole show, no dips.
For you young kid, it's gonna be lit.
Yes, lit mostly. And for all the youngsters out there and everyone else who's listening, we're talking about everything in entertainment. But this week specifically, we're talking about games, baby. Two games in particular. Let's just jump right in. Ghost Recon Breakpoint beta, closed beta, because Joe and I were like, we have to play this, and we decided to pre-order it. You got us, Ubisoft. You
Do
win
we
again.
regret the pre-order? I guess that's a question we'll have to ask when we're done with the rundown.
It's a really good point you make there, my friend.
Quick synopsis. What's it about? How's it different from Ghost Recon Wildlands, which was an exceptional game?
Yeah.
They supported it all the way until now. Still kind of are. It's still a great game. Still holds up to this one-ish. There are some differences, some nuances, but give me a bit of where's it based? What are you doing? Where is it based here? What are you doing? What are those kind of differences? What's the general broad overview?
I like that you got ahead of me, and so you're asking me the questions I would ask you. So I respect it. That's very good. So the tables have turned, baby, and guess what? I'm ready to rock and roll. Let's do it. Okay, so last game, which I will say this, the Bolivia environment and experience, I think, was ever present in the last game. There's like the radio is going on. There's a lot of chatter amongst the ghosts, but that's not here anymore. We're at a completely different place. We're in Aroa, which is a Pacific island, or an island out, I should say, in the Pacific somewhere. It's one of those classic like video games that has all the biomes. It's got the forests and the mountains, the ocean.
It's part of Hawaii that they never discovered.
Exactly, pretty much. And so the controls, we can say for the most part, are pretty much the same, but you play as, 4 ghosts, more or less, that I think like kind of the storyline is. You kind of get shot down on this island because it went dark. It was this island owned by Tech, which is this guy named Jay Skell. He's this kind of like Apple type mogul type of guy, so he's got a bunch of drones and things. But this whole island went dark.
Than Apple. I mean,
yeah, a little bit crazy. It's like Elon Musk-y type, Yeah.
Well, then again, Apple was killing people over in China. They were jumping off the tower. They had to put nets because they were working them too hard or something. There's a whole article.
We're trying not to get geopolitical over here, but this is what this game is all about. And for the first time in a Tom Clancy game, I think they said that this was the first time that they went with a fictional environment, because most of the games with the Tom Clancy name are based in reality somewhere. But I think all the blowback that Ubisoft got from the Bolivian government last time, they're kind of like, let's maybe not do this again. So
a little bit of backlash there.
Yeah, which is fine. But there's a nice little tie-in to the last game with a free update of John Bernthal being a former ghost turned into a quote-unquote wolf, and he's the main bad guy here. So the elite enemies in this game are former ghosts, or at least a former ghost training other ghosts to hunt you guys down. So you got to keep that in mind when you're going to fight these guys. However, here you are on this island trying to take it back. You kind of get your little resistance put together. They have this kind of base camp that's very MMO style, where you just see other players running around. That's where the frame rate drops a ton. But you can get different quests, kind of do story stuff. Get different guns and buy guns, which is a little bit different than the last game where you kind of had to find them. But it seems like you can also find guns because enemies drop loot now, because it's much more of an RPG experience. In the last game, you kind of had these skill trees where you kind of like, you'd have to do certain things for like a medical operation, and then you get some medical points, and then you had to put stuff in there. But now this time, it's like you kind of pick one of 4 different classes and kind of specialize into that, and then you can kind of pick and choose throughout these branching skill trees about how you want to kind of make your character and the different perks that come with them. So right off the get-go right there, it kind of gives you a little more depth that the last game didn't have, kind of specialities amongst your group, which is important, because if you're going to work as a team of 4, it's kind of nice to have that variety as opposed to just all being people with sniper rifles, which you can still do that totally, but there's like kind of there's a sniper class tree versus like a more assault oriented, like I want to shoot everything and blow everything up tree, which is kind of cool too.
Now, for a quick question, or for a quick side note or step back,
Yeah.
let's hop back to the looting
Yes.
and stuff you're picking up.
Yeah.
It's almost like, would you compare it to Ubisoft's The Division?
Oh yeah, I think that's a really apt
Only a little
description.
more
Yeah.
automated.
Yeah, I think it's not. They're not throwing as much loot at you. Division is like straight up like Diablo. Like like you kill people, they're like confetti, or like I should say, they're like pinatas. There's like there's loot everywhere.
And decide which lever pick up. This you just automatically pick it up and you get it done. Boom, bam.
Yeah, pretty much.
So does that eventually clog up your inventory with a ton of weapons? I think it kind of starts to, and maybe it looks like there's also just like the Division, you have a gunsmith mechanic, so you can go break down equipment for parts and stuff like that, which is pretty legit.
Yeah, I was still trying to understand
a lot of the same.
Yeah, like the differences too, like where you get like a new gun, and it would be like it was a higher level gun, but it would have maybe not better stats than the one you already had. So I'm still trying to figure out all that stuff. Plus, there wasn't a really good way to differentiate, at least for me, to see between like they put all the guns together, so it was like snipers, assault rifles, submachine guns, all in a group. And that's one thing Division does really well, is they would show them in different colors. It'd be like, oh, all the sniper rifles are, well, actually, no, would they do that? That was for rarity. I don't know what's a smart way to do that, because there's usually rarity in these types of games. I think there might be rarity in this one too. I'm not exactly sure as far as like
drops.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure if there's a good way to differentiate, but I would just like it to kind of parcel out a bit better, because I get a new gun and all the guns look very similar, especially when they're all black. And I was just like, okay, so what is this gun? Oh, it's a P90. Okay, I know what a P90 is, but I might not know, the differences between all of these types. But yeah, the gunsmith stuff, which is so funny how tucked away that is now, because in Ghost Recon Future Soldier, that's where they originally introduced that mechanic of like, you take a gun, you can break it apart, and then you can like tweak every little thing about it. And that's like tucked way in the back, because now they kind of just like auto, like when you pick up a gun, it just puts a sight on there and puts like a suppressor, and it's like, all right, this is what you're going to put on there anyway, so here you go. But I think that's kind of an interesting aspect. I don't know how much that's going to clog up our inventory, and I'm interested to see if like it's something where we're like, oh crap, I have to stop again because I got too many guns. But it doesn't seem like the drops are nearly as frequent as in like something like The Division or maybe Destiny, where that is kind of the constant in that game. This is just kind of added on, kind of like how Assassin's Creed is doing it now too, even though there's still probably way more loot in that game as well. But let's see what else we can talk about here. Just trying to figure out all the new skills and abilities and kind of sneaking around. There were a lot of missions where they were asking us if they liked this mission. There's a lot of just like, go here, find this thing, go here, find this thing, go here, find this thing.
Which those I just clicked indifferent. It was yes, indifferent, no. And a lot of them I was just kind of like, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't like Wildlands where you had to infiltrate this base and take people out consistently and quietly, or tactfully, guns blazing, which kind of left me want more. But you could get into some trouble.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's what I think is they kept those big missions from us, I think, because they didn't. Maybe we had one mission where we had to like sneak into a base, but they're all pretty optional. It seemed like in the area and the levels we were doing, or the missions we had, but. Yeah. I noticed, one of my issues too is like in the past, like I love the stealth takedowns in this game, but for some odd reason they seem to glitch out a lot. And I think the enemies are more receptive now to footprints or footsteps, because I was kind of sneaking up on guys and they would turn around at the last second and they're like, oh my gosh. And then you'd like go to stab them and you'd be killing them, but they would shoot their gun and alert everybody. So I don't know if that's just me having to like learn how to be a better predator, because in most of the other games it didn't really matter too much. And at that point I'm almost just thinking, why wouldn't I just shoot him with a gun then, just to to avoid that moment. But for me as the predator class, to build up my special ability, which is like a smoke screen I could throw down and run away, I have to do quick, like I have to do those melee kills, those silent melee kills, and to do them in quick succession. So I was kind of thinking, okay, well if they're gonna make that hard for me to do, then I don't know, this class isn't as appealing then. It's kind of tricky, so I'm still trying to figure all that out. Plus, there was just like a lot of technical glitches, so I'm not sure if that was part of it. And a lot of the animations, which were cool, were kind of thrown off to the side, and they didn't make sense, and it didn't work super well all the time. So there's some bugs going on for sure, and I'm sure they wanted to do this, and they'll do an open beta. I'm sure they probably already announced it, coming up to release, just to kind of test all of that as well. But I want them to get this figured out, because this game is pretty slow-paced. and it is technical, but it doesn't have as many moving parts. So I think it shouldn't be too much to ask for the melee animations to look nice, instead of just being like you kind of throw a guy down and you're like stabbing the air, but it's like you're still stabbing him. It's like what am I even doing? So yeah, we're sneaking around. There was a few new enemy types. There's kind of like the big heavy guy, which was interesting. Where you have to you can shoot him a lot, or you can shoot him like right in the face and take him down. Which I dropped a few guys that way, and I know you did too, Joe. But you also had like a poison grenade that you threw, and this was a really cool moment. There's like this jeep with like 3 guys and a heavy, and Joe throws like a poison grenade. And if you would have thrown a regular grenade, it would have destroyed the jeep, which we wanted to take. But the poison grenade killed everybody else. Then like we killed that heavy then too. I was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. There's like more like tools, and I got like one of those blow torches to go through a fence. I was having problems because my reticle wasn't working to switch between the health and the different items I had the first night, so I couldn't torch a fence and try to get in it that way. But I'm really excited about that, and I'm just so hoping that they have some sort of grapple hook mechanic at some point. But sneaking around, I mean, it still feels good, we upgraded. We got the thermal vision, we got the night vision, and there was one base that you and I got into that we kind of wrecked a lot of shop with, and we killed a lot of people, and they couldn't really stop us, which I would
like to touch on something quick, and that's the skill trees.
Yeah. Oh, we can jump back to that.
With the specialist type, like I picked Assault, you picked the Panther, but then it goes beyond that, and you can get skill points to unlock skills, right? And the skill tree is sometimes I don't totally like the way the menu screen works.
Yeah, I get that.
Like I like to see things in a bit more of a broad overview, see it all at once.
Yeah.
Here it's kind of like you can kind of do that, but then you can't make everything out, and you're kind of honed in. It's like, but if there's one over here that I should have picked over the one I was honed in on over here, I don't know. It's weird. Everything's done with a cursor now. The cursor mechanic. Black Ops did it. Destiny.
Oh yeah.
What other ones have done it? A lot of.
Destiny was the first one that I remember. The first Destiny, I was like, oh, this thing.
Yeah, so you almost got a computer cursor deal, and I think that's the new standard for these menus now. They think you like it better. It's more fun. I guess I get it. But there are always so many menu options. It makes sense in a game like this. I get that because there are so many options to choose from and click on. It seems you have 3 perk slots, so you can unlock 3 skill slots, perk slots, and equip 3 at a time. Depending on the mission you're doing, I guess. I'm confused by that. So you can unlock all these skills, but you can only use 3 of them at a time.
Yeah.
It's kind of odd to me.
Sure.
So whereas in the other Ghost Recon, you just kept building up your skills, and if you had this level unlocked and maxed out, you're just good and proficient at that certain thing. Well, I don't know. Maybe that means that you really have to put a little bit more thought into what you're doing here, which I can get on board with. But yeah,
I thought it was weird too that they didn't just put those specific perks in like a skill tree for just the assault class. Like they're like, hey, do more damage, and like that's just for you, or something like that.
Yeah. Overall, one of the things, Jimmy, and I'm jumping off topic, but it's something I really wanted to talk about is the vehicular mechanics.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, this one could be a rabbit hole, but I'm gonna keep it short and sweet. For a game like this where you drive a shit ton, where you purchase vehicles with points, where you need to rely on vehicles for a lot of what you're doing, they should have worked on perfecting the mechanics of driving better. I'm talking Grand Theft Auto quality at the very least. Granted, the shooting mechanics, the third-person controls are pretty great, but the vehicles are so important, they should have done a better job.
Yeah.
Better job with that. The helicopter, not bad. I'm sure the planes are good too. The boat, not too bad. But I want more precision out of my vehicles to where I'm not like, what's the word? Like I can't keep the vehicle going straight, and it's constantly like bumping into rails or rocks. I can't be precise with it at all.
Like last game was better.
You can get out of control on dirt or muddy roads in the rain. I get that. But make it a little more accurate. I feel like they should have perfected that better for a game that really puts a what's the word, emphasis on travel.
Yeah.
Oh, especially if they want you to buy them in the store with your Zen points
Yeah.
or whatever, you know.
Yeah, it seemed a little weird too. Yeah, because I feel like the game, like they weren't as precise as the last game, which is kind of weird because I would think they would just kind of like copy and paste and put that over.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's
maybe
just
even
because the
improve.
I don't know. Yeah, I would think so. I don't know the technicality because like the helicopter seems pretty much the
More
same.
precise, I think.
So I don't know. And the other problem is too like the whole bivouac system, which is allows you to kind of put like these various little base camps all over the map, are like the only place where you can go and spawn a vehicle. Where in the past, like it was kind of weird, but you'd be like, hey, I'm calling one in. They'd be like, all right, it's over there somewhere, and you're like, oh, okay, like, but at least you could do that. Whereas now you have to be like, all right, I have to go to this place, get in my bivouac, like my little tent set up, my camp, and then summon it in, and then go back to it. It seems a little
Yeah, like
unnecessary.
it's spawning right next to you, like
Yeah,
running. Yeah, make
and
it a little
also
more streamlined.
I'm a little worried too because I like these games because there's that human element, and I like that the wolves when they show up because sometimes like a drone would spot you and they'd send the wolves in, and those guys are really scary because they're like super high level, and level has stuff to do with in this game now too, like your guns and stuff. Like if your gear isn't high level enough, you're not going to be able to hurt them the same way they can hurt you. But the drones make me a little nervous. They always kind of seem like bullet sponges in other games, and that's kind of the case here too, where they're interesting new enemy types, but it just there's not that human element to it. So it's just kind of you're shooting at things, or just kind of lobbing grenades at them, hoping to kill them, and you're just like, yep, there you go, I blew it up. And I don't know, it's not as interesting. And we kept finding gloves on these drones. I don't know, they have got hands or something. We get glove drops, man. We'd shoot them and they'd be like, oh, gloves for you, and I was like, oh yeah, that's fun. But yeah, we got into a lot of little interesting skirmishes, and it's very much like the last Assassin's Creed games they've come out with, especially Origins and Odysseys, I should say, where they kind of say like, hey, there's two ways you can play this game. You can change it and make it where it's just like, hey, go to point A, and that's where you got to go. Or the way that they have it as default right now is they'll give you kind of three different clues and say like, hey, you got to go to this point in the map. It's on this, like the northern shore of this lake. Maybe talk to some people around there to get more information. So I think that's interesting because it kind of engages your brain a little bit more. But if it's for a quest where you have to go from A to B to C, it's just like, it's like, okay, now go over here, and now there's like a bunker where you got to find a skeleton, and it's just like, like I kind of wanted them to just make really interesting bases that have so many different ins and outs to use my abilities, as opposed to just kind of fetch quests and stuff. So maybe this was just like they were showing off kind of the worst little quests, I hope, because I want them to do so much better, because the last game didn't really need to get that crazy and it was still a lot of fun, but I wanted them to kind of up the ante and maybe make some more interesting threats in there, or some things where it was like, hey, maybe you could try to extract one of these people for extra money or something, because there's like a high value target in and amongst this mission that you had no idea about, but there he is, you got to get him if you want, and you can get some money. Like stuff like that I think would be really interesting, but I guess it kind of plays against the whole like we are behind enemy lines and we're like just trying to survive, because you don't really get that feeling after the first like hour of the game. We'll talk about this though. One thing I thought that was interesting and I do really like is that you have a health bar, and right now at the beginning you've got like 3 different chunks of it. And if you get hurt enough, then like a third of that health bar will be gone, and you might have a limp, or you might have a hard time aiming, and you have to like sit and like go and like kind of bandage yourself up for a little while to get like your health back, and also to kind of, you know, fix yourself, because if you're limping you can't do your full run animation. If you got like a problem with your arm, you can't do like a good straight aiming animation. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's pretty cool. It adds a level of realism to it that you didn't really have before, right?
Yeah.
You know, you expressed some concerns there, and you want them to do so much more. Well, we pre-ordered the game, so it's like we're in already. I'm not too worried or upset that I had the pre-order. Knowing their history and what they did with Wildlands, I ultimately feel that they'll take this information, learn what they can. I think they will be polishing this thing up till release. I think there will be, I mean, just based on the beta, there was quite a bit there. It just wasn't anything of real substance.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty confident that they will have that and release it for the main game. Maybe even a little bit in the open beta, just to give everybody a little bit more of a taste of it, you know?
Yeah, I think so too. I was already kind of skipping over most of the story stuff, so I should probably go back and like when I actually play it, just like listen to everything, because I was like, I just want to get to the next mission, because that in these games the gameplay is just the driving force. I couldn't tell you any of the names of the ghosts in the last game, but the stuff like the new mechanic of hiding as far as like, all right, if I shoot a guy and some other people hear that I've shot a guy, they kind of know the area. But if you kind of move and then hide yourself or hide yourself in mud, they're kind of like, they'll walk right past you and then you can pop up and shoot them or knife them and stuff. And I love that stuff.
The whole camo mechanic is really neat. That's a cool little nuance.
And that's just the mud we've seen so far. They talked about doing like leaves and snow and all this stuff. And I'm still hoping that there's this like little moment where you go up into the mountains, like you should probably put like a coat on or something. Maybe like you wouldn't just be like in like short sleeve shirt and be like, yes, I'm fine in the snow. But
or like it takes your health away, kind of like Monster Hunter.
But I'm excited. I like the new mechanics and stuff, and it's on a base, and a really, really solid base at that, because I thought Wildlands was such a cool game. I'm interested to see why they didn't call it Wildlands 2, and Breakpoint I think there is a reason for that, maybe to make it more interesting and talking about like the psychological breaking point of a soldier. But I don't know, I didn't really get a lot of that in the beta. It just seemed like it was business as normal. And you and I took out some like high level group like together. They're like, hey, don't shoot these guys, they're much higher level than you. You can see like the red skulls. And I was like, all right, I think Joe, you and I could kill these guys. And we totally did. And I was like,
okay, done.
Yeah,
I some of the mechanics I like besides like the active camo and stuff. I also like the fact that they finally allow you to like run, you're sprinting, and then you can do a dive behind something.
Oh, that is
I like
cool.
that. I wish they would have done a slide like Call of Duty style, but with third person, I know it's a little harder.
And that is trying to be kind of realistic. It's kind of hard to slide on every surface.
No, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna go slide on the pavement outside. Ooh.
Yeah. Oh God.
Knee pads or not, no thanks. Yeah, the one thing, there's also something that bugs me a little bit. They have you searching in these buildings a lot for like crates and stuff, and I understand it's more tight quarters and it's going to be a little bit, you want your SMG out for close quarters and high mobility and whatnot, but sometimes in the dark, going from outside to inside, it is so pitch black inside, you couldn't tell if there's a guy standing next to you or not unless you turn the night vision on, period. And normally it wasn't quite that bad. Maybe it's my settings. I tried messing with it, but it starts to feel a little clunky moving in tight quarters.
Yeah, I think so too. Especially if you're trying to move fast. They want you to move slow. Right?
And I found myself starting to get a little dizzy or getting a headache trying to move through a building. It's just like, where are the stairs?
Yeah, for sure. That's totally true. Yeah, but so far, I got to ask you this. What's your hypometer?
Hypometer, if history has proven anything, Wildlands is great. They got time to refine this one, not to mention they're going to support it fairly well. Ubisoft has a good track record in that regard. I'm going to go with a hot 8.5.
Nice. I can't believe you took that, because that's what I was going to say, like an 85 out of 100 or 8.5 out of 10. I completely agree. I'm excited. I want to get more into it, and I also want to just explore better missions, just like less of this kind of go here, go here, go here. I just want them to be like, go to the base, find the guy.
If you got to go to a base, like make it so I have to actually tactfully take out a team of people or an onslaught of enemies. That's the fun part of all of this, right? Is taking people out. Don't just put 3 guys around a truck and okay, you found the info on the back bumper.
Yeah. Great. That's true. Yeah, it seems kind of weird too, because like the last game you had purpose and you had your handler who'd call in and be like, hey, you got to take out this guy. We're all working to get El Sueño eventually. But here, because you're just kind of behind enemy lines, part of me wonders like if that's going to hurt the story, where it would just be my guy tries to find a boat to get out of there and leaves and then brings back the real cavalry. Because like at this point, it's like, well, I know we're getting missions from this resistance group, but like why? Like, kind of, I want to know the purpose,
That's another thing too. So there's a good foundation and all, but they're trying to do like this whole, a lot of these games like Destiny or Monster Hunter or the Gathering Hub deal. A lot of games are trending towards that central gathering point for online players, and it just doesn't work well. The base is cool and all. I like it. It's hard to find things. I'm sure I'll memorize it eventually. It just takes time. But it's so framey and glitchy. So many people in there, and there's nothing smooth about it. And you can't run. And to leave, you have to run all the way to one side, go up this long path, out this path, through this screen. I'm just like, oh. Just let me click on something or a board that's close by, or have multiple ones in the hub, and boom, I head out to my car that's waiting in the lot, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Like, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of sick of that whole base thing too, because I know like you look at Monster Hunter, which we'll talk about here, but like they kind of have it down where it's like you kind of have your own base and then you meet at the gathering hub, because in that game it would make a lot more sense to have like 40 people running around all the time. But in this game, like it's there's only supposed to be like maybe 1 or 4 of you, but you get in this base and you're like there's like 40 of us. You're like we can go kill these guys right now, and it's like no, you must do the missions, and you're like right. Yeah, but still, I mean, we're still excited. We're still excited.
Oh, for sure. 85.
Yeah, 85. All right. Excellent. We're going to move on, Joe, because we said we were only going to do that quickly. And then, of course, we started talking. We started yamming her away. But what I want to do here today, and we'll see how long we belabor this. Probably very long, because that's who we are. But Monster Hunter Iceborne. The expansion came out for Monster Hunter World Iceborne, and my goodness, I want to talk about it. I want to do kind of a review in progress for you guys. So this might kind of act as our review for the game so far. And we've gotten to the point where we're running into Tigrex and Brachiodos? Something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I don't know, Joe, like, how do you feel about this so far?
About the game as a whole?
Yeah, just start with the whole, and I will get into specifics, but I just want general impressions.
General impressions are, it is everything I wanted, maybe even a little more. It's more than I expected. And I initially invested 60 in some tax. And the base game gave me over 230-40 hours worth of fun. And now a year and a half, 2 years later, I invest $40 and I've got the game almost reimagined, or almost twice over, expanded upon and improved, and it is a blast. I'm always finding new stuff to have fun with, things to grind out, and grind is the wrong word because I think grind can be a negative term, but in this case it's fun grinding, you're building beautiful stuff and having fun with your bros. It's good. The designs, the details, everything's there. It's a good time and worth $40, or worth the cost of a game if that's what you're doing, if you're just starting. It's almost unending, a crazy cog in the wheel on this giant cuckoo clock, you know what I'm saying? So it's a good time, really is. And just, you can find yourself getting immersed in it, like you're just sucked in, and there's so much to know and learn, and even an experienced player can just be picking up on new stuff constantly, and there's endless combos you can do for like armor and skill buffs and this and that. It's just unreal.
Yeah,
it really is.
Agreed. 10 out of 10. Let's just give it game of the year right now, and then we can just move on to freaking 2020, baby. Cyberpunk. No, yeah, I completely resonate and reciprocate, and just kind of, I will just scream this game from the rooftops. And that was just the base game. And then they're like, well, let's do an expansion, and not just like a typical, some games used to do expansions where it wasn't much, but like this game is like CD Projekt Red style, like Witcher. If we're going to do an expansion and you're going to pay for it, it's going to be worth your while. And not only do they still, like, they give you this whole new area, which we're going to talk about, they still make the regular areas relevant with new monsters and new reasons to go back, and that is such a cool thing to me. It's like they're not saying, hey, that's the old stuff, it sucks, like this is the new stuff, it's way better. It's like, no, like you're still gonna hunt in these old places, but you're gonna fight new monsters in these new places, and you're gonna see them interact with old monsters in these places, and you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, what happens when a Diablos tries to run into a Glavenus and they're smashing into each other, and you're like, oh my god, like you just watch these things, it's like, yes,
the thing that's cool is they've kept the old monsters relevant.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And they're making them stronger too. Like, actually, I was looking today to upgrade one of,
Master
like,
rank.
All of the weapons now can upgrade. So, like, you thought you maxed them out. It's like, nope, they have, like, other versions now. And I was looking, they want me to go back and fight other Tobi Kadachis, but probably, like, master rank Tobi Kadachi. And I'm like, oh my god, let's go back.
Yeah, so it's not like you're going to just freaking walk up and one-shot it. It's going to take some work because it's master rank. They made them relative and worthwhile. Yeah, you've seen them before and everything, but they're still cool in their own right. When's the last time we fought a Tobi Kadachi? Like, that was since, like, hour 60 for me.
Yeah,
You know?
that's true. And well, nowadays we're fighting like Viper Tobi-Kadachi. We're gonna try not to spoil everything, but spoilers are on for this game. So if you got an aversion to hearing us talk about Viper Tobi-Kadachi, then you best get out. I'm just kidding. I'm
Mhm.
sorry about that. I want to talk about a few things specifically. Let's first talk about the new region, Hoarfrost Reach, and how dense and how different and how refreshing a literal breath of cold, fresh air if it is in this game to this game. And just like it feels so alive. Like the other ones feel alive, don't get me wrong, but playing in Elder Recess for so long and kind of fighting the same, Elder Dragons, it's just kind of like, but this place just feels so cool with the snow tracks, the big trees, the fact that the animals use that to their advantage, both of those things is so fascinating to me. And there's something, maybe because I'm from a place where it does snow a lot, that I'm like, yeah, snow. I'm like, snow always feels like it's like a cool, like interesting dynamic to a game. And I just love it, man. I really like this new region. How do you feel about it? Is it your favorite now too?
I think it's super sexy. I think it has to kind of be my favorite. It is dense, lots of features to it. Um, I think I like that the environment can have an impact on your fight or change during the fight. Maybe even, well, not more so than the other ones. I mean, you had the whole water dam slide
Oh
with the
my
Rathalos stuff.
god, so
You
cool.
had
Like that's probably
you
one of
had
my
the
favorite
Diablo
moments.
sand pit
Uh,
and Wildspire,
yeah.
stuff like that. There's similar stuff in the Hoarfrost. I won't spoil anything. You may have seen something. You may have played it already, but um, there are little nuances like that that are just great. I like the whole deep snow up to your chest type of deal.
Yeah.
I think that's cool. I thought the whole swimming in snow thing with the Beatidos would be weird, but it actually works. It's kind of cool.
It's very Jaws
Um,
like.
yeah, yeah. And they finally gave a monster like that some badass teeth, which it deserved.
Yeah, for sure.
And the new monsters are just cool, man.
Oh no, wait, we'll get to them. Trust me, we'll get I wanted to save them for
Oh, and
last
I
because
wasn't even gonna get into it. I just like the whole aura they put around them in this environment. They fit the environment very well,
oh yeah.
most of them. And the new base, Celiana, is amazing. I think I like it more than. See, I forgot the name of it already.
Astera.
Mystera.
I completely agree with you. It is warm and cozy to the 10th degree, and I love it so much. I was going to bring that up next, actually, because I think that base is a really good representation of everything that Iceborne wants to be. It's like
Mhm.
a better, complex, and more efficient version of like the base game, where one of my favorite things now is like you don't have to go to your room to go into the training area or to do stuff like that. There's a little your little guy is sitting out front where like you can capture monsters. Your room is right next door to that, so like you can talk to him outside. You don't have to like load your room or anything, but your room is also incredible. I still don't know how they bring that aquarium with you everywhere, but the
Dude.
boat, they do, and you don't
Yeah,
even
and the
have to worry about it.
customization options are insane. I mean, from changing the material your couch is made out of, or changing the color of that material, or the size or orientation. Ah,
Yeah, I think this is just a dip in the toe for them to say, okay, do people really like this, and how much money do we want to put into it for Monster Hunter World 2? Because bet your
mhm.
bottom dollar when they make that game, not if, when, that there's going to be more of like, hey, Joe invited me over to his room to be like, hey, look at this. So remember that Nergigante we killed? Like it was kind of like a special one. I made a couch out of it. Like you'll be like over here, or
Yeah.
here's my Barioth throw rug. Like you're like, oh look at this, look at I. It's like it's gonna get to like a really sick level, but we're all gonna be like, that's pretty cool, that's pretty rad. But man, your room is just so much better. And I remember getting there's like 3 rooms in the first one where you had kind of your crappy room, your mid-level room, and then your like your big, crazy, beautiful, luxurious room. And I always kept the middle room because I felt like my hunter, that's kind of like, that's where he'd top out. But with this, I'm like, oh man, it's so warm and cozy. The gathering hub is really nice, and it's nice that you can actually access your blacksmith and other things up there that you couldn't. I don't think you could do that before, so it's nice to be able to do that without having to like go back into like the regular rest of the base, but you can still do that too. I don't know. I love the new chef. I think she's great. There's a new little Steamworks minigame where like you can get a bunch of free items by playing this little thing. And I was learning
I
how to do
didn't
that.
see that.
Oh yeah, dude, you got to go talk to the Steam. Like, there's a Steamworks, and you have to like hit the A, X, and Y for Xbox in the correct order, or triangle, box, and X, I think, for the PlayStation. But once you do that, like, it keeps building up this Steam, and you get more and more items. Like, it was giving me mega potions and giving me all this stuff, and I was like, oh, cool. And it's just a fun, stupid little mini game, and it's just they're all having a good time. The little palicos are helping this little engineer guy out, and it's just like screaming, and things are bursting, and like it's just fun, man. The game's just fun. And every little thing you do is fun. Like, they don't really have you do things that are boring. And I know sometimes it gets annoying to be like, oh, you have to go out and find footprints for a monster to learn more about it. But that's part of the hunting part of this game, or like trying to learn more about them. And yeah, it is annoying still that you have to like watch the cutscene. And like, I have had to play this or get the cutscene first before I can join Joe to hunt the same monster. But they want you to like look at this monster, see it, and know how to fight it by yourself before you ask other people to like, get in right away, like your buddies.
Not totally. I don't really have any qualms with the whole I have to watch a cutscene. The cutscenes are absolutely gorgeous and well done, and
so
like
good.
Very cool intros.
They make every monster look like the scariest monster. You're like, oh my god, like.
Yeah, like truly great introductions. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think we should talk last about the monsters here. And to start, I think talking about the different variations of the ones we've already gotten, and that there might be a few in there that are potentially cooler or more true, I think, to the essence of that monster than their regular counterpoint. The one I do want to bring up here is, I think, potentially one of the most terrifying just because of the joke that it is, which is the new coral puke, which instead of poison, it's shooting water out of its face and out of its tail, like one of those wacky water things, like hose flower things. And it is scary, but also comical, and it does a lot of damage, and it looks perfect. It looks like the right version of that monster. It almost looks like that was the original, and then the poison puke was like the new version of it. Because when you see this thing going around Coral Highlands, it's really bright and colorful, and it's just shooting water like in two directions off of its mouth and out of its tail, and it's jumping in the air and water.
Very well.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I think that's what's so cool about it, but it is just such a weird looking thing. We were talking about the Viper Tobikadachi earlier, which also has a poison built into it, but it also still has the paralysis if it bites you, and it's like black and orange and kind of more sleek and looks like a tiger kind of. That's really cool. I haven't fought it personally, but the Fulgur Anjanath, which is like a lightning version of Anjanath, is like, I saw that come around a corner and I was like, oh my gosh, like it was genuinely kind of scary, and I was like, that thing looks cool too. And yeah, they are reskins, but they have added new elements to them to make them scary in a new way and say, hey, you know how to fight this thing, but it might have a trick or two up its sleeve that you're not ready for. And you're like, oh, okay, all right. Like, I really enjoy that. But so far, besides those ones, I know there's a few more that I don't know of yet. They've all been pretty cool to me. But the new monsters, even though there's a few models, I feel like they kind of just like changed up how they look a little. Man, all of them are just so cool. Like, the worst in the bunch is still like mediocre. Like, that's how good all of them are, because I think like 90% of the ones I've seen so far or maybe like 80% have just been incredible and cool to fight and all different. And I'm just like, that one's cool, that one's badass, that one's really scary. I'm just like, each one of them, like, yes, yep, like
it's
every
hard
one
to
of
pick
them.
a favorite for sure. The whole hybrids or offshoots that are similar but different elements and stuff like that. The one thing I like is that they still gave them their own personalities. They don't fight exactly the same as their counterparts from the base game,
way. Yeah,
which I really appreciate. So it's not like it's just a recirculated or recycled version. It truly is a new fight.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So far, the ones we fought, which one is your favorite for like the actual new monsters though?
Ooh.
See, I had an idea of what I wanted it to be, like, at first, but now after fighting some of these newer ones, I'm like,
Dude, and there was some more down the line, too, but right now it's between Barioth and Glavenus.
I completely agree with you. I love it. For people who don't know what we're talking about, Barioth, think of like a big
Saber-tooth tiger.
big white tiger, big saber-tooth tiger, yes, that's got like wings, a big like it's got a tail that's kind of like bisected, and it can shoot.
Porcupine-y.
Kind of. It's not as porcupine as Nargacuga. That one's the porcupine kind of.
Yeah.
That one, but it's able to like fly a little bit and also shoot like ice blasts and ice tornadoes. It is such a cool thing. It's kind of like a Nergigante with like an element built in, because it's jumping, it's attacking all the time, and it's cool to fight
Very
it in this
fast,
big
but
icy
bigger.
tundra. Oh, it's big. It is a big guy. But the Glavenus, man, that thing's like if you took an Anjanath and a Baroth and smashed them together and it gave it a big blade tail. That thing is so cool to fight.
Very sexy looking too.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's like a T-Rex that was covered in like lava, and it was like, oh, man, like, it's a
Hard
cool
as hell
monster.
to get the tail to sever, by the way.
It is not impossible, but I feel like it might be impossible. Yeah, because we tried the other night. We had one in the arena. We just like focus it the whole time. Like, what is this thing going on?
Maybe with a team of 4 all blades, you could probably get it, but just the 2 of us, we were having trouble.
I will say though, at the beginning though, especially during the beta, and still for me, I really love Banbaro. I really like that fight because not only is it a cool monster, but I love that it uses the rocks. It uses, or like a snowball, it builds up, or it takes a tree and then it uses that to kind of smash people. I just love a monster that kind of has a different technicality to it, because there's some monsters like the Tigrex, which we fought, you know, in the beta, and we also you know, in this game. It's kind of boring by comparison. It's just kind of like a dragon that has no elemental attack. It's just like angry and trying to punch you and claw you, and it can kind of combo you down. It's like, that's kind of dumb, but like I love the monsters that have like a cool, like, that makes it unique. That's cool. So yeah, for me, man, that Barioth though, Barioth and Glavenus, I think are just so cool. Yeah, and I've had a little skirmish with the Brachiodos, but we'll get into that later. I won't spoil everything from it, but upon the reveal of it, I was like, oh, is this going to be like another Urigan? And it's like, nope. And it kind of reminds me of like a Lavasioth 2.0, like not in the actual style of the body, but just like what I wanted that monster to be. But yeah, I'm just excited to fight more of these things. And Velkhana, who is in the beta as the new Elder Ice Dragon, I'm really stoked to actually fight and take that thing down, because that's kind of like the big bad of this game, is that it kind of flew in and it's kind of ruining the whole region, and they got to figure out what to do about it. But there's a chance that there's another monster like Xenojiva, or Xeno, whatever they call it, that is maybe like an external factor. I love it. I just love that the game takes itself so seriously, and they're like, we got to figure this out. We're all part of the ecosystem too. We got to like take this thing out and, you know, make the world better again. And even though the hunters are a pretty big invasive species when you start to think about it. But
yeah, right. There is another one similar to Velkhana that I hear is going to be pretty impressive and impactful. I don't think it has as major of a part in the story, or at least not thus far that we would know of. But from the teasers I've seen, it looks amazing, and I won't share any more because you don't want it spoiled, nor do our listeners. So
yeah, well, we got to do an honorable mention, by the way, to Nargacuga, which is kind of like a smaller Barioth, like a bat, cat, wolf that's got this big porcupine tail. It'll smash down, but then it gets caught, and it has, I don't know if it has poison quills or it can bleed you too. It's just kind of like, to me, it reminds me of like if you gave Odegarin some fur and some wings and then let it loose. It's just one of those that's moving around all the time. And apparently it can destroy pitfall traps. I was reading that like in the little handbook. I was like, that's so cool. Like, I would be so pissed if I put it down and it was like, no. And I'd be like, oh, come on, man. But yeah, I'm really excited to fight these things again and again and again. And I'm just like, I'm thinking about Glavenus. I'm just like, I want to go fight that thing. And fighting it in the Wildspire Waste, which is used to be my number one. Maybe Hoarfrost Reach is my top, but fighting it in the Wildspire Waste, like sliding down the sand dunes, and this thing is like, it's charging up and burning up its tail and explosions and everything. I love it. And it's got that kind of Dodogama or whatever thing where it kind of, you know, charges up its tail, but it's got like red in its throat, and if you hit the throat, it'll explode and knock it down. And I feel like exhaustion and knockdowns have become more powerful or prominent in this one. I feel like I've been knocking more monsters down with my hammer, and I'm not sure if that's because on top of it they have the new mechanic of the clutch claw, which we didn't talk about, but is basically a grapple hook that everybody knows and I've probably described earlier. But you can grapple to different points in the monster, and if you have a heavier weapon like a hammer, you can attack and wound them. But if you have like a more like let's say the sword and shield, you might just pull off like some slinger ammo, and that slinger ammo is so important now because you can actually like put that stuff in your slinger, get on their face, and sometimes if you have enough stamina, you can attack the monster and it'll kind of direct them. And then you can fire off all that slinger ammo into their eyes, and it'll make them go forward. And if they hit a wall or other thing, it'll knock them over. So it's kind of like a quicker version of a mount. The problem is I still don't know how all of that works, because sometimes I'll grapple to a monster and it'll throw me off immediately because it's in the middle of an attack. So you got to kind of time
or
it. You
it's a
can't.
little too aggressive at that point. You almost got to pick it out when it's tired enough, or in the middle of like a movement animation where it's not like spinning, or like a bucking bronco.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. And like wounding it has been really crucial, because like when I've been playing with Joe, who's an archer, sometimes using the bow, if I weaken the tail or like the leg or something, then his damage, I think the damage goes up, or it'll show different damage numbers, like these little kind of triangles around it saying you're attacking a wounded portion. And I think that might make them easier to break or sever. I have to look into it because I still don't know, but it's kind of fun to do that, because then it's like, hey, Joe, freaking shoot him here, because it's just like I smash the leg or smash the head, and then it's like he can do more damage with it. And that's just a fun mechanic. And as like a hammer user or other heavy weapon user, it's like I just try to make the whole body like as damaged as or wounded as possible, so you can get more hits off. And I there was something they talked about wounding it and hitting it in the same spot when you wound it, and that's good. And I know that for like the Beatodos, they said that, or Beotodos, if you wound its legs, it can't do its ice attack anymore or something. I don't know.
Really?
Like, I'm still trying to figure out all this stuff, because that's the thing with this game. Like you said, Joe, it's like a big freaking, it's another like cog in this gigantic cuckoo clock, and it's just like this tapestry. You kind of step back from it and you're like, oh my god. But the that clutch claw thing, it really does change the game. And watching like 4 hunters all like grab onto a monster, just like slam onto it, it's so cool. It's really cool. And just making a monster just run into a wall like a big idiot and knocking it down, and it does like 1,000 damage or whatever. You're like, yeah, I did that. And it's like,
I'm ashamed to say I haven't figured out how to direct them into walls quite yet.
So you have to hit B when you're on them, because it attacks with the claw, and that'll turn them a little bit, because they might throw you off at that point, and then hit right trigger if you have any slinger ammo, except for flash pods. Flash pods just blind them, but if it's stones, if it's any of that stuff, you can just shoot.
Stuff you pick up in the field.
Yep,
right?
and it'll shoot all of them. So what I do is, like, if I get 3 piercing pods, I'll use the first 2 just on the monster, and then I'll save that last one, and then you just shoot it and then fall back, and then it'll charge forward like maybe 20-30 feet, and hopefully you have it directed at a wall, because if it does that, then it's like, and then it falls over, and you're like, yes, because it takes that damage, it's knocked down, and you're just like, hammer, which I love. And just every fight feels so fresh. And switching, I was using the hammer so much today, and then I switched to the longsword, and I was like, oh, it's just a breath of fresh air. I was using the divine slasher, just this really long sword. It's just such a different feeling. And then switching to the glaive, which is so different too. And just like, man, like the game is just chef's kiss. It's just so good. Everything's so good about this game. It's hard to find things I don't like. It's just like quality of life stuff that I know they'll fix in the sequel. Like, it's just like little stuff where I'm like, but yeah, that's kind of most of the new stuff that I've seen so far. All the armor and all the new weapons too, we're still trying to figure out and get, because we have to destroy every monster. And I've been trying to capture everyone on my first hunt, so that's been fun too, and that's been pissing off a lot of the people I've been playing with. I'm like I'm taking it home. Like everybody stop. But I just have been loving it. I love it so much, and I've already put like 14 or 15 hours into it, and I haven't seen every monster yet, and that is for a $40 expansion. So, and Joe and I we were playing it like the whole time together. Even though
we're barely scratching the surface. I mean, we're maybe 6 monsters into the expansion, and there's still at least that left to discover.
Is that on top of the new variations, or is that including the new variations of like the
I'm including the variations.
Okay.
I mean, like I said, they take on a personality of their own. I think they're almost a new monster. They just look similar.
Yeah, which I like, because at first they kind of bummed me out. I was like, oh man, I don't want just freaking reskins. But when you think about it, it's like a leopard versus like a tiger, versus like a panther, which I should say leopard and panther are a little more similar, or jaguar and panther. But it's just, you're right, they do, the Toby Kadachi versus Viper Toby didn't seem as different, but that Puke, and I'm interested to see that Fulgur Anjanath, if it like shoots lightning breath or something. Like, I remember that one being really hard. And today, Joe, I still wiped once last night and once today with that Tigrex fight. That is like the new Anjanath for this game. Like, it'll just barrel through people and just knock them all out, and you're like, especially when you get like this close to winning, you're like, but I did take one home, because I was like, all right, It's kind of a boring fight to me, but I just want to get this done so that way I can go in it with Joe and just like, all right, let's take this thing down. Which that one might be a super good one for like a lance user. I really want to get into the lance or the gun lance and just like kind of with these super aggressive monsters, just kind of sit there and tank stuff. Or heavy bow guns can do that too if you have the shield built in. You can just like take that stuff, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but. Yeah, as you can see, I'm really excited. I just want to go play more. I was like, oh yeah, we got to do the podcast tonight. All right, so I'm like, I was like streaming it.
I've already got it loaded up, waiting. So
yeah, we got to wrap it up. We got to wrap it up. So Joe, so far, what do you give this? Like, if you had to give it a number out of 10 so far, what would you give it?
I mean, can I not give it a 10? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's dang near 10. It is freaking great. It is great.
Yeah. I am right there with you. But then again, you know who you guys are listening to, because if you ever saw our game of the year for last year, I don't think we can nominate this game because it's only an expansion. If we could, and I might jokingly throw that in the video, just be like, it's basically a game. But we love Monster Hunter so much, and we are both first generation Monster Hunter players. For Monster Hunter World. We did not love the franchise before this. I remember seeing the reveal of this and thinking that looks kind of dumb. Like I remember seeing like it was like, oh, it's a T-Rex versus a like a dragon. Whoopity doo. And then I tried it and I was like, this game's really cool. And just man,
I'm not normally one for a game of this type.
Yeah.
Like I'm a bro gamer. I'm a shooter guy.
Yeah.
And here I am playing this, and I am enthralled.
Well, you eventually got to the bow.
My palms get sweaty, mom's spaghetti. I'm all up in that thing.
Well, you eventually got to shooting a bow and arrow, so it's as close. Well, I guess you could get like a bow gun and just.
Yeah. Well, you know, I love the melee weapons in their own right, but I gotta admit, I've really been loving the bow lately. There's something stylish and fun about it. I just appreciate.
I just wish it felt better. Like I don't know, like the fling of the arrow.
Some of them do, and as they get more powerful, like certain ones, surprisingly, the Devil Joe one, as much damage as it has listed, it doesn't feel all that great.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it has to do with like the files you're equipping. Like, you know, once you switch from close range to like your power file, it feels a little cooler, and you get that little bit of that little pizzazz on it. And the rock falls that you shoot up.
Yes.
I think that's fun, and I think it adds a new essence to the fight and helps the team in that it kind of directs the monster and kind of disorientates it a little bit and screws it up. I like that. And breaks parts now and again.
Yeah. Have you been charging it up?
Yeah.
Attaboy. Yeah, because I know we talked about that last time. It's hard. Like, there's so many nuances with every weapon in this game. It's hard to know everything about it. And I still was learning stuff about. I think it was like 100 hours in to know that I could redirect the Spirit Helm Splitter with the longsword midair. Like, you could go up and then hit Y in a direction, and it would like turn and come down. I was like, what? I didn't know you could do that.
That's the other one I've been having fun with, which I've never really been into. That's my whole gig this time around. Is I'm trying to expand my horizons and try new things. And recently I've started to get a lot better with the longsword.
Yeah. Well, fun fact about every weapon in this game, each one of them is incredible and amazing, and there's not one bad one in the bunch. Because you try one out and you might be like, that's kind of dumb or not for me. And then you get into like the nuances of it and you're like, oh my gosh. Like the glaive. I was like, glaives are stupid. I like mountain monsters as much as the next guy. But I was like, blah, blah. There's all these, you have to get all these buffs and stuff. Who knows? Who's got time for that? And then I played with it for a while. I'm like, yeah, that's a pretty cool weapon. And you're like flying around all the time. I'm like, woo. Man, I love it. I want to do the same thing. So I don't know if it's going to be lance or gun lance, but one of the two. Because Joe, if you're going into heavy archery, I want to be your shield, baby. I want to do that thing that happened with me in the beta where I had a heavy bow gun and some like lance user was in front of me and he was like tanking the shots as I was like reloading and stuff. I was like, thanks, buddy. Like, which I think is just so cool. And like,
but you gotta be strong for that too, and you gotta have a high affinity, high sharpness weapon because otherwise you dull it so quickly by taking those shots. It's like that's all you're doing is taking the shots. You're barely doing damage after.
Yeah, I just don't know which one I want to do, if it's just the lance or not, because it's kind of boring compared to like the other weapons we mentioned, where they're high mobility, kind of moving around a lot, where you just kind of stab, like stab.
Well, it gets more complex than that. If you're a good lance or gun lance user, you can do some pretty like acrobatical or neat moves. It just requires a bit of skill. I never realized it myself. Like the gun lance, there are some aerial attacks you can do where you jump, leap, and shoot, or leave a splinter in the monster that explodes. It's cool.
That's what I'm
into. New move sets for all the weapons too. They've added new moves to a lot of these, and the fact that the customization is just going off the charts. I don't know what to work with first, or
Yeah.
what I like the most anymore.
Yeah, well, that's true. And like learning how to combo your grapple, I think, is the kind of biggest thing. Like, because I know with the hammer, what you do is you do the charge up, and you can do any version of that right trigger, even if it's a small charge or the big charge, and then you just quick hit left trigger after that. And then if you do the biggest charge up, swing down, and you do the grapple, it's like you're coming off a slope, so you'll spin towards it and hit it along the way, and then you can do the thing that wounds it. So like that. Like sometimes the game, it's hard to see even what's happening because it's like you're inside the monster with the camera and it's just like moving around. You're like, I think I'm hitting it. Like, it's just like, here we go. But yeah, it is just I'm gonna at least a 9 right now. It's just I really,
Is that all?
I purely love it. I have to kind of taper it a little.
Right? 9.5, bro. 9.5.
9.5 probably. I mean that new I hate cats so much, and really that grandma Meowscular chef or grandma Grand Meow chef or whoever she is, she gives like a whole point for herself because she's just over there, she's just rubbing spices into the meats. Like they didn't have to make a new cat for that. Like they didn't it's just there's so much attention to detail in this game, and they just know it. And they apparently all the bow guns, I didn't know this, have different maybe noises to how they sound and fire too. I didn't there's just so much in this game, and just the new region alone is probably worth the money. But all the monsters, the new base, your new room, just all of it. Totally worth the price. So if you ever played Monster Hunter World in the past and you loved it, it's just more of that greatness. If you've never got into it in the first place, this is a really good time to buy because for $60, I think you can get both. I think that's the Ultimate Edition right now. I might be wrong on that. I think you can get both for that price, which is pretty amazing. And actually, Monster Hunter, I think, is part of Games Pass right now, too. So you could, for $1, just get the base game. So if you aren't sure about that for like a month, you could try it out. But it's just, that game alone makes Games Pass worth it for me almost, just to be like, I'd pay good money to just play this game every day.
100%.
Yeah. But anyway, there you go. Monster Hunter World Iceborne review in progress. Very high scores from us, just about as high as you can get from us because we rarely give anything a 10 out of 10. But I'm just excited to go play more. I just really want to go play more right now. So, Joe, that leads us into the next segment of the show that I like to call, that you like to call, what do we like to call it, baby? Did you mute yourself? I can't hear you.
Killer.
There we go. It sounds really weird now. Try talking again.
I don't know what happened.
You probably unplugged it, is my guess.
To say Time Killer.
That's right, it's time for Time Killers. Games we're playing, the movies we're watching, TV shows we've been viewing. Joe, what have you been killing time with, baby?
Well, I think we've already talked about it. Ghost Recon Beta, got to invest time in that, see what it's all about. And then Monster Hunter, been kicking ass in there. And as far as watching stuff, Bachelor in Paradise, I don't know why, it's addicting. The Bachelor as well. The Bachelorette, not so much. I don't know why, but it's all great. It's just entertaining. Am I embarrassed to admit it? Only slightly. I think anybody can find a little bit of entertainment in it, regardless of how masculine you are. So that's really been about it.
Cool. I want to touch base on that briefly too, because I watched that because my sisters got me into it. I've talked about it a few times, and I get a lot of people probably tune out at this point. But sometimes I watch it and I think to myself, if I just happened upon this show right now, I'd be like, oh, who are all these people? I don't know them. This is dumb. But because I think I've watched all of them for so long and seeing them interact, there's something...
It's almost like a series.
It is a series. I tell people it's kind of like... Think of Bachelor in Paradise as like the Avengers of reality TV. Like, it brings all the good and bad guys together, and it's like, here they are together for like a couple of weeks, and will they love each other?
Coexist.
Yeah, and it's so funny because like on one of the last episodes, they showed them like all working out, which I don't think we've really seen before. They've been kind of showing more of that stuff, where there was like orcas that like swam past one day, and they were showing that as like an end credit scene. Yeah, it's so cool, and I love seeing that stuff because it's like, okay, what would normally happen on a day here, or how do they stay in shape? And it shows them like, yeah, sometimes that's boring, but sometimes they're talking like about their feelings, but they're also just getting ripped in the process.
Dude, I love when they're treating it more lightheartedly. Like,
yes,
I love that. Like Matt was like Sydney's like pressuring him and giving him every sign and bit of body
language, dude, yes,
for him to kiss her, and finally he does. And they cut to like these scenes like the crab is starting to clap or something, and like all these animals, a lion roaring, and
Like a baseball stadium cheering.
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna stop after a point, but it kept going, and I was legitimately laughing out loud because I was not expecting it. I was like, "Good job, editors!" Like someone was like, "Yeah, let's punch this up a bit." Like,
yeah, like doing little things like that make it all that much more entertaining to me and more fun.
yeah.
So,
Which I think it's funny too because the show obviously it caters to a wide audience and they play the music and it like kind of tells you how to feel. So usually in the first few notes I can tell if the conversation is going to be good or bad or received well or received poorly. Because if you hear like the weird music, you're like, all right, this person's saying something, and this other person doesn't like it. But if they play that kind of like, oh, this is nice, this other person's going to be like, thank you so much. Like, but the editors, man, on that show, they can make those ads for the next one look like anything they want. They'll make someone look like they're having a...
They truly make their money. They earn their money.
Yeah, they make it look like some people are having like a breakdown and are about to die, but then it's like something that happens in like 30 seconds and it's over. And they're like, oh, that wasn't a big deal. Or they will, out of context, take things from the interviews and put them in, and it makes it sound like someone's going to leave somebody else. And you're like,
and they put it
well
in
done.
weird orders, so you think that this is going to happen here, and it doesn't. It happens like way in the beginning, not a big deal. Yeah. It's like the editors, they earn their keep for sure.
For sure. So I enjoy watching that, and it's almost wrapping up. And the whole hope, I think, for me too, is that I'm an old-fashioned hopeless romantic. So like once in a while, you get people on that show who legitimately love each other and stay together. Because some of them are like, how's this gonna work outside of like paradise, where we're like just two people living for weeks on a beach with free room and board? Like, because you live across the country from me, how's this gonna work? And those conversations, that's when it starts to get really interesting. Because I'm like, okay, so people are talking about this.
A lot of those conversations, like Hannah G and Dylan.
They talked about it last time. She was like talking about like going on walks. She was going to move to California because she's from Alabama. She wants to leave.
Well, of course she'd move to California.
Yeah, most people would. Yeah, I mean, yeah, if you can. But yeah, yeah, that whole thing, it's interesting, and there's heroes and villains, and you have favorites and stuff, and it's a really...
John Paul Jones, is he an idiot, or is he somewhat smart?
Very, I don't know. I think he is intelligent, but like he just talks, and now they've got Connor on there, so there's like these two guys and if you guys don't know what we're talking about, there's these two gentlemen, one in particular who just sounds like such a surfer bro. He'll be like, oh, like don't insult my intelligence, like I know what I'm doing, like, but the words he says,
he tries to have a serious conversation, or he just talks in a circle and finally gets the point out 5 minutes later. It's just like, this guy's an idiot,
and then he just starts laughing out of nowhere, which seems super scary. Like if you're having a serious conversation and someone just starts like legit laughing, it's like, okay, is he stable?
Like me all the time?
Yeah, what? I wasn't gonna say anything, but yes. But yes, so check it out on Hulu. I guess that's where it's on, or ABC, which is owned by Disney. So yeah, Disney's got me. I never thought Disney would own a show like this. But...
every aspect of our lives, they're involved.
Yep. Every single aspect. Congratulations, Disney.
Well, folks, that's going to do it for this episode of Time Killers on the Critical Podcast. Moving on.
Yes, we are moving on to that last segment of the show, which is community feedback.
And questions.
Yes, thank you very much. I was just writing the timestamp so I don't forget. Our lovely Legionnaires on our Discord, they came out and they told us they had questions, and I appreciate them.
Questions.
So this one comes in from our buddy Riley. Hi, Riley. Thank you. Hashtag Critical Podcast. He said, game of the year so far.
Oh, we already talked about it, didn't we?
I guess. I was trying to think about other games we played this year. You know what? I'll say this. If it has to be a full-fledged game, I'll probably give it to Devil May Cry 5. So, if it has to not be an expansion. Joe, you can just say Blackout.
That was last year, though.
I know. So I don't...
Ooh, thus far, ooh.
Division 2. Wait, was that this year? Yes?
Yeah, it was.
Was
I guess thus far, if it has to be a full-fledged game, it has to be Division 2, right?
Did that come out this year?
Was it February, March?
It might have been. Yeah, you're right. It was March. Yeah. I think it was March or something like that. It came out like the spring.
It was a good game and all, but thus far, there hasn't been a full-fledged game for me that's like, boom. Hands down the best thus far. So really that's just like a cheap award for the Division 2. But if you consider Monster Hunter Iceborne a full-fledged game, boom, that one's got it, and it may keep it.
I think Call of Duty might edge it out for you, maybe. We'll see come awards time, because like I think Breakpoint's going to be up there, but they're just different games. Like it's so hard to compare any of these games.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm really curious to see Modern Warfare here in October. I think that might take the cake for me, but just because it's really my bread and butter. But you know, and especially if Monster Hunter Iceborne doesn't really count because it's an expansion. But yeah, time will tell. But for right now, the Division 2 holds it, I guess, because there hasn't been much for me.
That's true. Well, you have to stay tuned to the Critties, people, because we'll give you the... Actually, we won't give you the Game of the Year, but we'll do... Man, our award show gets longer and longer. You know what? We should just do it the first week of December, Joe, and just be like, we're taking the rest of the month off. Like, you just be like, there we go. There you go. Yeah, anyway, this one comes in from Lodiez, and I think this is an interesting question, even though Levi's not here because he is playing World of Warcraft, so we'll answer it for him. Lodiaz asked us on our Discord, #Critical Podcast, that's just let us know. Do you think classic World of Warcraft will stay around for a long time or just be a passing thing? We saw at launch servers being queued and so on, but are things bound to die down soon, or will it steam on like the private server scene has done for many years? Joe,
Man,
what do you think?
I don't know. Levi's been playing it 24 hours a day nonstop since it released or since he got into a server. I don't even think he shuts his computer down for it. I think it just keeps going constantly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it will.
You got to get bored with that eventually, right? Like a month or two in, you got to be like, all right, I've done enough.
Yeah, and that because they've already gone through it before, and I know it's been like 10 years. I think it will slow down. I think it will live on, but I don't think it will have this like, oh, we got to stand in line to queue up to get into servers thing. I don't think it'll be that bad. Riley actually added on to this. He said, a follow-up to Lodias, do you think they'll ever add expansions to WoW Classic like the old, like, so Joe, I think it was Burning Crusade was the first one, Wrath of the Lich King, there might have been another one in there too. I would not be surprised. If this does as well as it's doing, why wouldn't they do these add-ons and just be like, well, do you remember this? And people be like, yes, I do. Like, you know, and
do the math, I suppose. Makes sense.
Basically, what we're seeing Blizzard doing is the same thing Disney's doing. It's the same thing everybody's been doing. We're all preying on nostalgia. That's what this is. And if they can prey on it and make money off of it, and it can be successful and people can think great things about your company because you're doing it, then you're gonna do it. And yes, I'm not saying like Aladdin and Lion King and all those things they are financial successes for sure, but I don't think they're gonna hurt the overall feeling towards the company or the original source. So I think with this, like I said, we'll see it slow down a little bit. But I would not be surprised to see them kind of ramp it back up with Burning Crusade and those expansions later on down the line, if they can do that. And it's so funny because eventually they'll get back to where I think it is nowadays. So I don't know how that all works. It's getting a little confusing because it's so funny to me that so many people love this stuff for so many years, but they just want to go back to the original vanilla just World of Warcraft where it's not as complex, I don't think, as it is today. And I do not know all the ins and outs of this like WoW Classic stuff because I played it way back, and I don't know if they've added like the new mechanics or new abilities and spells back to that. I have no clue. But I am not into MMOs because I am not into paying subscription fees for games. I guess I have to do it for streaming services, but yeah, that's a good question though, and I'm interested to hear what everybody else thinks too. I want to hear what your game of the year is so far, and I also want you to let me know and tweet us and let us know if you think that WoW will keep going on like this, or if it will slow down. I think MMOs are becoming a little bit not archaic, but I think we're seeing games like Ghost Recon try to adapt and use those things from MMOs, like a gathering hub and mission types of that nature. So we're not seeing them as like, I'm not paying for like 5 months to play Ghost Recon every month because I'd be like, no. Even though Ubisoft has their own streaming service for games now, and everybody's getting a streaming service for games. It's too much. Anyway, thank you for everybody who wrote in. I do appreciate it. If you guys ever have a topic or a question for us at any time when you're listening to this podcast right now, send us a question. I want to hear it. All you have to do is tweet the #CriticalPodcast to either of us. You can tweet at our official account, which is @GoCritical, or you can tweet at me personally. I'm at JimmyGood013. But if you want to tweet at Joe, you can tweet at
Lever_627. That's Lever just like Beaver, only with an L. And if you want to reach Levi, where can they reach you?
They can't because he's playing freaking World of Warcraft, and so many times we've asked him to play Monster Hunter with us, and he's like, I gotta go to this thing. I gotta go watch this movie. Blah, 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 blah.
And then I gotta come back to WoW. And
yeah, and completely
this was a guy who was totally addicted to the base game, like 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks
Yeah,
ago.
we had him back, and I was so excited because I got you both back in for a little bit, and I was like, yes, they're primed. They won't be rusty blades for Iceborne, and then, of course, he's gone. But that's okay, buddy. We got each other. We got each other. You know, we're kicking it. I wanted, like, Leo to hop back into this. I don't know if he will. I think he's just busy because he would be all over this, man. He would be like,
what the heck?
Like, he
was like a behemoth, like nut. Like we had to slay behemoth.
Behemoth is basically his white whale. Like it was straight up Moby Dick. Like he was like, I'm gonna kill this thing one day, one way or another. Like he was hell bent, and I don't blame him.
Still haven't slayed it, believe it or not.
That just goes to show how tough that fight really is. And
now
eventually,
it's almost not worth it. Like there's some good stuff you get from it. It's decent, but like the newer armor is kind of like.
Maybe it'll make it easier, so that way we can go back and like you'll hit with like a meteor and it'll just take your health down just a little, and you're like, "Pa, Behemoth, Basha!" Like Behemoth's like, I used to be a threat. And it was like, Basha! Which I heard this thing. Just quick side note. Apparently, this guy posted this a while back with a heavy bow gun to use like a cluster bomb, like using cluster bombs. Because apparently, if you use cluster bombs in a group, it'll knock them back. But if you solo with cluster bombs, you can take on like. They were putting up videos of like people like soloing Behemoth with just cluster bombs. They just sit there and just cluster bomb themselves and then just like shield from him. And it was just like, they're like, it made it too easy. They would just go on and just like cluster bomb, cluster bomb, cluster bomb, cluster bomb. Or like even on Leshen, they just cluster bomb, cluster bomb. It's just like, oh, it's very funny. That game, so cool. So cool. They give you so much. Anyway, Joe, thank you for being on the show as per usual. I appreciate it.
Always a pleasure, pal. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And to everybody else, I appreciate you. Thank you for supporting us and hanging out here. If you want to support us further, we do have a Patreon, we do have a Spreadshirt, but just, hanging out here, watching this, sharing us with a friend, that is the biggest thing you can do for us. Either way, thank you so much, and until next week when you're coming back, because I'm telling you, you got to. Just remember to adapt and overcome. Here we go. They've got no choice. I'm never gonna dance again. These empty feet have got no rhythm. Though it's easy to pretend, I know you're not a fool. I should've known better than a cheating friend to waste this chance that I've been given. No, I'm never gonna dance again the way I dance with you. How do I know the words to that song? I don't know. Is that right? Did I get that right? Gosh, I don't know. Man, is anyone going to listen to this? I don't know. I'm not sure.